Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Zoe. If you're new here, you're welcome. Subscribe, like, share, comment, and I'd really appreciate all of that. So in today's video, I'm going to tell you how I landed my first ever remote job as a Nigerian and as someone that has been living in Nigeria. I'm basically a Nigerian. I was born in Nigeria. I live in Nigeria, and I currently work for companies in the United States and companies spread across the world. Now, let's talk about that. Now, how did I land my first ever remote job? Permits me from smiling a lot. I tend to really smile a lot. My first remote job was a cold calling job with an insurance company in the United States. I prefer not to mention their name. But that was my first ever remote job. Prior to that job, I never had any idea of remote working. I never knew I could actually stay at home, put on my headset, use my system, talk to people over there for companies and clients and get paid. I never knew that. I was still in my 200 level then. I was still in school in the University of Port Harcourt, Nigeria. I was studying history and diplomatic studies then. So at that point, I didn't have any idea of remote working. I didn't know about working from home, nothing like that. I was basically just a normal young girl in college. So on a fateful day, my sister, my elder sister then, who was schooling in Cyprus, the University of Cyprus, she had a friend in Ukraine. So her friend in Ukraine told her about a particular job. My sister then took the test for the job. She applied for the job. She passed the first stage, but the second stage she didn't pass it because she didn't really have the accent they were looking for. So me being here in Nigeria, me over here in Nigeria, she plugged me to it. Okay, I think you can actually do this. You have the voice, you can form the accent. So why don't you just give it a try? So at that time I applied, I was chosen. The first stage, I passed the first stage. The second stage, I passed the second stage. The last stage was a little bit hard for me because then they had to check my technical requirements. A call is coming in a minute. So I took the tests, I passed the application stages. I'll never forget the HR of that company. She was so nice. I was so comfortable with taking the interview. I think the last stage was the technical stage where you have to check your system requirements and your internet connection. So I failed that stage like twice. I had to take the test again and again and again. And the company was so nice. So they had to like give chances to people to work on their internet speed and all of that as a then. So I worked on my internet speed and I passed the 3 stages. I started working, I got paid. I'm not really going to say my first ever salary. I think it's not necessary to mention it. Yeah. So that was like my first ever remote job. It was nice working for that company, but obviously cold calling is not a play in the park. So I had my bad days, I had my good days. It was like really stressful at a point, but obviously I needed the money, and even now, who doesn't want money? So that was how I got my first remote job. I didn't have any skills. I had no knowledge of remote working. I got my first remote job from my sister and her friend. So if I'm to come here to tell you I got my first remote job based on my expertise or my skills, that's a big fat lie. My first remote job was gotten, from my sister. My sister plugged me to the job. And that time, I even had to use my sister's technical requirements. Am I explaining this very well? My sister had to run my tech check for me then because Nigerians weren't accepted. So the story is actually a little bit complicated, but basically my first remote job, I didn't get it based off skills. I didn't get it based off expertise. I had the privilege to get into the remote community based off the opportunity my sister and her friends knew about. my sister and her friend knew about. So that's how I landed my first remote job. A lot of persons always ask me this: oh, how did you get started in remote working? How did you get the knowledge? All of that. This is basically how I started. Like, I was just a 200 level college student who, you know, could form an accent, and that's how I landed the job. But after that job, I didn't relent, right? I had to still keep on pushing, and that's the point I started developing my skills. That was the point I knew that if I am to actually land more jobs and be that person I want to be, I'm not there yet, but I just knew that I had to start, you know, gaining knowledge, right? So as of that time, I paid for a couple of courses. I met a couple of persons. I was just basically grabbing knowledge from different areas when I was in school. Like, most times when I was missing classes in school, and I was looking so stressed, I was going through life. Most of my classmates that might be watching this video, right, they'll get what I'm trying to say. But then it was because I was doing a lot of things. I was frustrated, I was confused, I was just trying to make sure I get the knowledge I'm meant to get. So what I'm trying to say in general, or in summary, you've heard how I landed my first ever remote job, how I ever got to know about remote working, how I understood that working remotely or work from home jobs are not, you know, illegitimate. It's not a scam. They actually exist, and I'm a living testimony to that, honestly. So I'm trying to say that yes, I landed my first job based off my, you know, sister and her friend, but I knew that I had to, you know, improve myself, get skills, put myself out there. So I had to even pay for courses. I had to take skills, a lot. a lot. So that was how I landed my first ever remote job. Kudos to my sister, thanks to my sister's friend, and all of those. But my second remote job, that one, I had to fight for it. I had to find a way to get it. My second remote job was a little bit, because I was working for an agency, so I landed a cold calling job also, but with an insurance company. It was still an insurance company, but with an agency. So the agency was like paying me, and they were taking their own percentage. So it was more of like, if I was to earn $500, I was earning like $100, then the agency takes like $400. Like, I was so not thinking then. I was just like, I was in college then. I was still in college then. So I didn't even care. I think the conversion rates then, when the money was converted, like then, I used to earn like 150K, 150,000 naira, you know, when you convert the money to naira. And the agency could be earning like $300, $400, close to 800,000 naira in naira then, right? Am I really converting this well? But that's basically what they were earning. Yeah. So I had to also quit then. I had to stop working for the agency. I had to end my contract with them. And that was the point I had to get myself, like, I had to find out about remote jobs by myself, for myself. That was the point I had to just go out there and say, okay, I need to get this job for myself. Nobody can be using my head anymore. So in summary, what I'm trying to say is, if you're someone searching for a remote job and you've been struggling with it, just know that don't have the mindset that remote jobs are not real. That's where a lot of persons are actually missing it. Just see it as a rejection phase for you, and a phase that is going to pass. Because personally, if I never got into the remote working space early, I would have never believed, you know, this whole work from home shenanigans. I would have never believed it, okay? So I think for people that still doubt remote working or earning in dollars or working from home, it's because you've not been given a chance. And that's why I still understand people who are even scared to pay for courses or skills or whatnot, because they have never, you know, gotten the chance to see how it feels like. So they're like, oh my God, is this even real? Yeah, so that's basically it for my story time. I don't even know if I'm a really good storyteller, but that's it for my story time. That's how I landed my first remote job and second remote job, and this is where I am right now. Currently still doing cold calling, but I do a little bit of data entry and virtual assistant by the side. Thank you very much for watching.